What is up, guys? Welcome back to another GeekaWhat video. In this one, I'm going to be building the ideal gaming PC for 1440p gaming. A system that, by the way, also has serious legs at 4K. Featuring a 13th gen Intel Core processor, an RTX 4000 series GPU, and a brand new, refreshed version of Cooler Master's famous TD500 mesh, this build could be pretty interesting. So buckle in and let's do this. The Corsair Xeneon 32-inch gaming monitor is a panel that packs a punch, bringing your games and media to life on a vibrant, ultra-slim 32-inch IPS 4K display. It's a panel with some power. What's more, the fast 144Hz refresh rate and nippy 1 millisecond response time ensure you can keep a competitive edge. Learn more about the Xeneon 32 UHD 144 at the first links in the description below, and buy now on the Corsair web store. I'm going to start things off, as always, with a brief look at all the parts I selected for this build. And as always, you can learn more about any of these parts at the links in the description below. Now, at the heart of this build is the graphics card, and perhaps one of the more controversial parts in the parts that I've selected. NVIDIA's RTX 40 series has had a rocky start to its lifespan. The 4090, while expensive, was seen as a phenomenal GPU in terms of performance, while the 4080 seemed an expensive red herring that was overpriced compared to the last generation offerings. Thankfully, the 4070 Ti is a slightly different story. It's still expensive, but it gives you entry-level 4000 series performance, and due to inflated prices on AMD's 7000 series, does so at a price that, comparative to the competition, isn't horrific. This ASUS Strix model's on the slightly higher end, but there are also cheaper versions available to be considered. For 1440p gaming, this can do it all, and it's a similar story at 4K. That lower 1440p resolution is going to give you the really high frame rates though, which is what I'm after in a build like this one. Processor-wise, this is a build designed solely for gaming, which is where the CPU comes in, the i5 13600K. You can also pick up the 13600KF, which is the same CPU, but without any graphics, if you'd like to save a bit of cash. Alternatively, the i7 is also a fair bet if you're looking for a system that can do more than just gaming. Storage-wise, I've gone all out. Gen 4 NVMe, Samsung 990 Pro, a bit of a splurge, but with high-end graphics cards, it's important to have decent storage. So a 1 or 2 terabyte derivative of this drive will work well. Memory is a similar story, 32 gigs of Corsair's Vengeance RGB DDR5. It's got, of course, a nice multicolored light strip, which you control in Corsair iCUE, and with a 5600 MHz speed, it's one of the lower latency DDR5 kits we've had a hold of recently. The whole build will be installed into the ASUS Prime Z790A. I've tried to keep costs down a little bit with the CPU and motherboard, as you can probably tell, to pour more money into parts like the GPU. With a 4070 Ti build, you need to be careful, because if you go too high-end, you might as well build a system with a 4080 or the more powerful 7900 XTX instead. This board still gives you all the haunts you'd expect from a Z series motherboard, overclocking for both the CPU and the memory, decent VRM cooling, and heaps of connectivity. And frankly, some of the high-end Z790 boards out right now are so unbelievably overkill for anything other than a 4090 build. This makes sense and is going to save you a few quid. Cooling is provided by the brand new Cooler Master Hyper 212 Halo White. Once again, you could go higher end on the cooler, but I'm not planning on overclocking the CPU by a huge amount. This is going to still keep a lid on CPU temperatures, which we'll explore later, and will help us once again to justify the expensive price of the GPU. I'm fully aware these new cards are quite expensive, and making cost savings where you can is important. Finally, power will be provided by the Cooler Master V750i Gold. This is the latest version. It's an ATX3 and a PCIe Gen 5 design, so the 750 watts you get out of this is a lot better than the 750 you get out of a lower unit. And by better, I mean it's more stable, it's more resilient, and actually, because that efficiency level's higher, there's more power available. Important for these GPUs, which need so much power. Oh my goodness, I just realized I said finally. There's one really key component I forgot to look at in the excitement, and that's Cooler Master's Masterbox TD500 Mesh V2. So give me a moment, let me unbox it, and we'll take a closer look before putting this whole system together. We use so many cases for our builds, and very often we'll use the same one for, you know, a second or third time. But of course, this one is brand new, so it's like a little bit of a treat. I'm very familiar with the original TD500 Mesh. I wonder what is different about this one. First impressions, I'm not sure. I think they've changed the mechanism on this tempered glass panel. That's a good catch. I think it also, to me, feels like it might be a little bit longer. Still the same build quality you've come to know and love, though. 3 RGB fans at the front, no fan on the exhaust, so that's a bit of a shame. Even a cheap white case fan would have been a nice addition here. And then by the looks of things, there's like a box of goodies. I wonder what Cooler Master have sent me. I'm not sure this comes included in the case. I think this is an extra. Rather feels like it's Christmas time and I'm opening my presents under the tree. Oh, right. So this is what Cooler Master are calling their gem. It's a bit similar to other products. I mean, it's been done before. Let's put it that way, and let's be fair about this. And this is like a sort of an accessory add-on, I suppose, that you stick or attaches in some way, shape or form to the front of the case. Now then, I should probably look at the instructions. But that would be very simple. So this has got like an integrated, sort of like a headphone stand on by the looks of it, where you can hang your headphones to. And a user manual. Right. Oh, I can't lie, guys. There's not much of a user manual required for this. It's magnetic, so it just like sticks. And you can put your headphones or whatever. Oh, nice. And not too expensive. So that's good to see. So I'm just having a read through some of the press materials that they send through with this. And apparently one of the USPs is that you can actually just attach 3D printed attachments. So if you've got a 3D printer, which I really sadly don't, they didn't send one of those over, you can actually make your own things like a drinks holder. And with like a 1.5, 2 kilogram payload there or thereabouts, it can hold a decent bit of weight. So pretty bulky, a gimmick for some people, but a useful addition for others. As far as specific changes on the case goes though, they have actually added, as I suspected, thicker radiator support for the top. Great for new warmer running CPUs like the Ryzen 7000 lineup. You also get this repositionable power supply shield down here, so you can take off this cover, and have it open. So if you've got a screen on your power supply, you can still showcase that information. But otherwise, build quality, features, pretty much the same as what we've seen before. TD500 has always been one of my favorite cases. So another good job on this by Cooler Master, and good to see that they're keeping it alive for another few years at this point. Anyway, that's enough of the case. We'll come back to that in a moment. Boom. I'm going to go ahead and just add everything into the motherboard for now, starting off with the CPU, a little something like so, and following up with both the RAM into the alternate slots, slots 2 and slots 4 for this build, and finally the M.2 drive under our M.2 heatsink. You know what, actually? That's looking pretty good. The Prime Z690, so the last gen ASUS Prime, was a lot more bare bones than this. This is really, really sleek. Colours, aesthetics, spot on. I'm going to install it into the case, basically. Like, where else is the motherboard going to go, James? And if you pop the case down flat, you'll be able to see that there are indeed a range of pre-installed standoffs. Now for an ATX board, you need 3 at the top, 3 along the middle, and 3 down the bottom. Looking good. They're all in exactly the right places. There's also a nice little cutout just here to install the CPU mounting hardware, so I can do that in a moment's time, and that shouldn't make installing the cooler too difficult. Drop the motherboard into place, line it up over those standoffs, and then it's a simple case. I say simple, a case of screwing it in. So we've got 9 screws, obviously, to pop in to secure it down. And before you know it, the motherboard will be nice and secure and not likely to move anywhere. The cooler is next up, and this is yet another version of Cooler Master's famous Hyper 212, lineup, I want to say, at this point. But obviously the design has evolved quite a bit in a few years, and you are getting a more advanced proposition, I would say, than what you would have a few years ago. This, I think, might be the first one they've done that's all powder coated in white, I want to say. I'm not too sure. Looks amazing, actually, either way. Really, really nice. A simple tower heatsink design, and then you also get one of their Halo RGB fans to provide plenty of throughput. Now then, how on earth we install this thing is the next important question. One positive though is that the included backplate, that's this thing here with the kind of scaffolding on one side and the clean edge on the other, is actually pre-assembled this time. Major improvement. That's just going to sit on all of the holes through the motherboard, and you can adjust the size by just pushing these black tabs in and out, nice and simple. And then it's a simple case of just popping these 2 brackets onto the base plate of the cooler before screwing the whole thing down into that backplate. The installation process has been really simple simplified compared to the RGB Black Edition, which is the previous iteration of the 212. So major props for that as well. Design looks great, and the fan goes on at the end to complete the whole aesthetic and look. Right then, GPU time. Now, unfortunately, not that many white graphics card options, and as more come about, we'll obviously recommend those in the description. We'll probably make some best white GPU roundups over on the website as well, which I'll link in the cards now. But for the time being, this Strix model is going to have to work, and hopefully I can tie in the blue and the red colours to the RGB and the rest of the system and try and create something that's white themed and cohesive. I'm also hoping this graphics card fits, because it's a bit longer than I remembered. Let's see if we have any luck. I will be leveraging for this build as well a vertical GPU mount. There's loads of options for various brands. Cool enough to have one as well, and I'll put that in the description below. Now, lengthwise, we are okay. Height might be a different story. Oh, I forgot the joys of using tower air coolers. Did mean there were things to consider. Oh no, bad news. That is not gonna work. Right. I'm being watched by the whole of the GeekaWhat team. Video editors, benchmarkers, writers. Everybody is enjoying this far too much. This is the second time in a week it's happened with a graphics card. And yes, you're going to have to bleep that. I don't think that's going to go in. Graphics cards, why are they so big? Oh, they're so big. Why are they so big? Oh, man alive. Now, obviously, an AIO, this wouldn't be a problem, but this is not a build with an AIO. So bear with me. We've got another 4070 Ti. I'm going to try that one. Sorry, ASUS, your Strix is a great card, but no bueno. Round two, here we go. Second 4070 Ti. Arguably, sorry, this fits the scheme a bit better anyway. The palette's got a bit of a wow for... Oh, this'll fit. Yes. We're going to be in the money here. I can just feel it. Here we go. Right. So, oh, it's tight. Oh dear. I think this will fit, but it's going to be close. The bloody latch on the mount's latched and I can't get the... Oh no. Right, hang on. Oh God. Yep. Oh, we're in. It's meant to be. Now, pop the fan back on, which is going to be interesting. Screwdriver, just to... No, too big. Screwdriver, smaller this time. Just to kind of squeeze this cable in. There we are. Just to kind of eke her in. Aha, there we go. Nice. That took a lot of effort. All I need to do now is screw a couple of those screws in. To reassure you all at home watching this video, this is very plausible, but what I would do if I did this again, which I never normally do, is put the graphics card in and then install the cooler afterwards. Like literally no cooler at all, put the GPU in, then add the tower on. Of course, if you're gonna go for an AIO, you won't have this problem either. This is just a slight oddity of the build I'm putting together today. After a bit of hassle, we're there, and the last thing to install is just a power supply. I'll also be adding in some white custom sleeve cable extensions from Easy DIY Fab, and I'll link those down below to spruce the whole thing up before booting this thing up to test out performance. But first, how well it looks, how good it looks when it's all powered up. RGB configured, extra fan in the rear in the only way we know how. Stay tuned for the performance, but first, time for a montage. With the build all powered up, booted and ready to go, it was time to try out some titles and see how this thing performed. The first of those titles was Warzone 2. At 1440p, high settings with DLSS enabled but set to quality. Remember, you could tune this to performance for a bit more frame rate. This build achieved 105 FPS on average. It wasn't perhaps quite as high as I'd hoped from Nvidia's new 40 series GPU, but it still gave us well in excess of 100 FPS. And of course, if you chose to drop down to 1080p, you'd be able to excel that 140-150 mark fairly easily. Call of Duty's Modern Warfare 2 is a very similarly made game really to Warzone 2, and here at 1440p high, DLSS set to quality, the build pulled in 111 frames per second. So we've gained 6 FPS over Warzone 2, but nothing mildly dissimilar to one another. Fortnite next at 1080p competitive stacked up predictably well, 285 FPS on this occasion on average. Competitive settings is where you tune everything down to low except the render distance, which you bump to far, giving that good view distance and competitive edge while also maximising frame rate. Thankfully, Apex Legends performed really well on this build. 1440p high in this title yielded 172 FPS on average, with solid 90 and 99th percentile results once again, while rather predictably, the next title on the list, Overwatch 2, delivered 260 FPS average at 1440p ultra settings. This is a build that really means business when it comes to 1440p gaming, and with legs for 4K gaming too, you're sure not to be too disappointed with performance on a system like this. Of course, it would have been nice to see slightly higher frame rates in the two COD titles, but lowering down those 1440p settings will help you achieve this without necessarily the need to reduce down to 1080p. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to get subscribed. Thanks for tuning in, and as always, we'll see you in the next one.